After watching this video, your brain will be irrevocably smarter. Today, we're going to talk about the principle of brain plasticity. Our content will depend on, according to a professor of brain science at Columbia University, Leverriboy. Now, before I go into this, I have two questions. Here's the first question. You think your brain is controlling your behavior, or is your behavior controlling your brain? The brain controls behavior. Here's my second question. As you grow and learn, did you notice? And then one year, you got smarter. Some in high school? In fact, this so-called sudden intelligence, take our Chinese as an enlightenment. Do you have any similar experiences? You can also write your thoughts on the public screen. So today, we will talk about how to make your brain smarter on its own. Changes in the brain can be broken down into three parts: chemical changes, structural changes, and functional changes. Because of the brain, this research is constantly being updated, so people's understanding of the brain. In fact, there are often three misunderstandings. The first misunderstanding is that your brain is a gift from your parents. So how smart is your brain? And its functionality is capped. The second common misconception people have about the brain is the brain can't change as an adult. The third misconception people have about the brain is that when you stop thinking, the brain doesn't function. But with the development of neuroscience, what we found is that the brain is actually changing all the time. Your brain structure is also changing all the time. So today, we are mainly going to talk about is how to get your own brain to change. In fact, simply put, to avoid it, is that behavior can change the brain. And behavior is constantly changing. The brain talks a lot about anomalies today. Let's talk. What is Lover's first core idea? He thinks it's not because of who you are, so you do something like this. To some extent, also, because you did something like this, who you are, your behavior, it's shaping your brain all the time, precisely because of a choice in front of you. You chose A or you chose B, and you keep doing A and B. He shapes who you are. You don't live with the brain you have. It's that life is constantly building your brain. It's sort of like Satzer's existentialism. You shape who you are, not who you are. So, what did you do? Your actions completely change the structure of your brain. It defines who you are. So, everyone's behavior, everyone's immediate choice is very important. Even if you don't choose, it's a choice. Which brings us to a second topic. 3 ways to change the brain. Chemical changes, respectively. Structural change and functional change. What is a chemical change? It's how the brain works. The brain is through chemical signals between nerve cells to transmit work. Change your nerve cells, and the nerve cells send a chemical signal. How does your body react? This is why everyone's anger value, it's different. That's why everyone's sensitive value is different. This is why everyone is concerned about the sensitivity of the music is different. Because, in fact, this chemical signal between your brains, the concentration, is different. So let's say you want to change your brain quickly. By changing behavior, learning to change the chemistry between nerve cells? No. Concentration. Here's a quick example. Is it useful to temporarily apply to Buddhism before the exam? Some are actually useful because you have the timing. You're learning. The nerve cells between your brains, the concentration of chemical signals between them becomes stronger. So you learned or useful. But did you notice that after the exam, the next day, when I ask you about the content during the exam, you forget the answer? So to some extent, what is this chemical change? Is to enhance your timing. You learn in one go. It will strengthen your nerves. The timing between the yuan, that is, before the exam. Don't think about relaxing. Still study. Cramming works. This chemical brain change will make you smarter in the short term. The second way the brain changes, it's called structural change. Because the brain changes, the morphology and number of neural connections. To store long-term memory, let me give you a simple example to illustrate. Look at that Ma Long, including Fan Zhendong when they played, right? Is there such a thing as muscle memory? Yeah. They actually see where the ball is. So I anticipated and hit this ping pong ball? No, his brain doesn't react that fast. But he's using this muscle memory. In fact, changing the structure of his brain, when a ball is sent out in a certain form, his body will naturally respond. Your brain will automatically respond. The structure of your brain has changed. So what does he have to do with this chemical period? What's the difference? Let me give a simple example to illustrate. That is, when you play the piano, your first time. Let's say you learn a simple piano piece. When you learn it, do you learn it? Will you never forget again? But the next day when I played, your hands still can't react. You will still forget. Because of your short study, it just changes the nerve cells. Concentration of chemical signals without changing your brain structure. But if you study for a long time, long-term learning, you'll never forget it. When you put this song, when the song Bullet is well known, you will never forget. Some people may have lost their memory, but he also plays the piano. That's long-term learning. Long-term progress gives you structural changes in your brain. This This is why when I was young, the teacher asked us to practice repeatedly, recite some poems repeatedly. Since I was a child, through the process of reading aloud, many poems have been memorized by heart, so you never forget it. Structural changes in the brain and your knowledge of poetry, rewards have improved. So why is there a saying? It is said that one's family environment is very important. The educational environment of a family is very important. To put it bluntly, it is the so-called gold and silver, so-called edification, so-called immersion. Let you unknowingly, you enter into a kind of long-term learning. Your brain structure changes as a result. That is to say, the child of a murderer. What if you were raised in a scholarly family? His brain structure will change. It doesn't mean it's a dragon. A dragon? A phoenix? A phoenix? Rats make holes. That's not true. As long as you are willing to spend time on long-term learning, do this kind of training for a long time, the structure of your brain will change. You can break through. The one that everyone thinks is the limit. The third type of change is called functional change. What is functional change? And the simple answer is this. It's this taxi driver in London. There was no GPS. So what are they going to do? They have to memorize maps. When a guest says, I want to go from this place to in another place, he uses his brain to remember this orientation. We went through an experiment called nuclear magnetic resonance. You will find taxi drivers in London. The hippocampus is much more active than the average person. They have spatial memory, more active than the average person. Is it because of the London Taxi Company? We selected people with active hippocampi to be a taxi driver. Either he is an ordinary person, but he trained for a long time, causing a certain function of his brain just better than the average person. Let me give you a quick example. That is to say, if you have studied Braille, the words of the blind, if you get information by touch, we can do it through nuclear magnetic resonance. You will find these people's hand sensory areas, brain function increases. That's trained to be functional. Brain changes. Do you find this exciting? That is to say, every action you take, it's kind of reshaping your brain. The most terrifying thing is that you won't change. But there's something disappointing about this place. Although the brain can change, everyone's brain can change. It's called brain plasticity. But everyone's brain plasticity is different. Just some people, and he wanted to change it so easily. Some people have a harder time changing their brains. Some people want to change their brain structure. He can train a certain behavior. Let's say we play the piano. Let's say we draw. Take writing, for example. Practicing calligraphy. For example, practicing dance. He could take 30 days and the structure of his brain changes. But some people may take 60 days. Some people can take 2 years. That is to say, this brain plasticity isn't fair. The brain can change. This thing, it's transparent to everybody. But the speed of change in time, it's different for everyone. He is different in a certain field. Or is it the whole brain? A certain field. But if you say, it just so happens that you want this field, if you get a change, that would be miserable. Right? Relatively hard work, but it can be changed. Changing the appearance means changing the brain. It's a very personal thing. It's just that he doesn't generalize. It's not like you read 30 hours of poetry. Read 30 hours of poetry with me. It's the same in the brain. He's a man of highs and lows. That's what we just said. It's all positive brain plasticity, right? Let's talk about it again. This negative effect of brain plasticity, what are the negative effects? That is, if you have a bad habit, it's hard to change. Yes, your brain structure already remembers that. Behavioral patterns of bad habits. Let's say smoking, like drinking alcohol, like clubbing. That's another way of saying that if your brain has acquired some kind of the dopamine-fueled experience, it's hard for him to let go of that model. This is why so many people have addictive behaviors. So if you hate this way of life, you're going to get it some other way. This could be a lot for you. Now, one more negative thing. It means you don't do certain things. It changes your brain in a way. Let's say you have the good habit of reading books every day. Then suddenly, because you went out to play, you gave up the habit. Your brain will also gradually become stupid. It's so real. Yeah, it's like this. It's when you give up a good habit, your brain will change too. No matter what you do, your brain will change because of what you do. Damn, this is why I often have an idea. Everything in this world is going backwards. There's no stopping, including your brain power, either advance or retreat, right? That is to say, if you don't want to make him smart, he will become stupid. If it doesn't exist, my IQ has been maintained. Ha ha ha. Right? So that is to say, if one of the brain's habitual way of thinking, it has caused you trouble, you can change it by your behavior, but change that through behavior. Behavior change is also a difficult thing. I've actually heard that phrase before. What Brother Ma from Taiwan province said, he said in a speech that, why does he keep running? He called it compulsion into habit. Habit comes naturally, and I found that to be very useful. If you want to change yourself, but you can make yourself smarter. It must have been uncomfortable at first. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Everyone's initial changes are uncomfortable, so you have to force yourself to do certain things. Force into habit. Habit comes naturally. Everything that grows up is anti-human, right? Of course, rotten is also a way of life. If you lie flat, I don't think it's a problem. But if you want to be smart, I hope this issue can help you get out of class.